Somebody has to tell her.
Holly, you're on mute.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm glad you can finally hear me. Well, thank you for joining us today for the University of Arizona Campus Reentry. I'm Holly Jensen, Vice President of Communications. Today, we have Dr. Robert C. Robbins, President of the University of Arizona, and Dr. Richard Carmona, 17th Surgeon General and Distinguished Professor here at the university, to discuss the university's reentry plans. With that, I'll turn it over to you, President Robbins. Sorry for the confusion this morning.
It's all right, Holly. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in today. This week through next week, the week of October 5th, the university will stay at in-person instruction for essential courses only. The most recent testing data from Friday, September 25th, shows 36 new positives from 1,051 new tests conducted by the university. This is a positivity rate of 3.4%. And we certainly like to see it down under 5%. So well done, everyone. 17 of the new cases were from campus health, from 89 that are tested. These 17 positives were comprised of 8 dorm students, 8 off-campus students, and 1 employee. I just want to remind everyone that campus health cases are for symptomatic individuals. The other 19 of the 36 total positives were from the Test All, Test Smart program. 962 total tests were done. Those 19 positives were comprised of 10 dorm residents from 539 tests and 8 off-campus students from 330 tests and 1 employee from 93 tested. This information is available on the COVID-19 dashboard, updated nightly at covid.arizona.edu/dashboard. So please go to this site to see the transparent data being updated every night at covid.arizona.edu/dashboard. As of Friday evening, we had 252 students in isolation housing with 348 beds available out of 600 total. 43 dorm students were isolating off campus. I'm pleased to report that our outreach and enforcement initiatives are having a very positive effect on compliance with public health guidelines. Calls to neighborhood hotlines have decreased significantly, and the campus area response team, the CART team, is dealing with fewer incidents. So this is a real success. People are following the rules. We're seeing less large gatherings off campus in particular. The CART team responded to a total of 13 properties Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, 4 fewer than the previous week. The team issued 3 university-related red tags with 10 citations and 13 code of conduct referrals to the dean of students. This is compared with 10 red tags, 19 citations, and 25 code of conduct referrals last weekend. This is not a time to become complacent, however. I continue to see groups of students around the University Boulevard and elsewhere without face coverings. And I beg you to please listen and follow the guidelines. This works. There is no question about it. It works. The 14-day shelter in place, self-quarantine, voluntary program is coming to an end tomorrow, September 29th. We believe this has had a significant positive impact. If case numbers begin to rise again, there may be a need to reinstate this self-imposed voluntary quarantine. But if the cases skyrocket again, then working with the county health department, more legal quarantine issues may need to be enacted. We're sorry to say that Dr. Cullen wasn't able to join us this week, but hopefully she'll be back next week. As a reminder, testing remains available for all asymptomatic students, faculty, and staff through our Test All, Test Smart program. Please visit testing.wellcheck.arizona.edu, testing.wellcheck.arizona.edu to register for testing with your net ID. If you're symptomatic, please contact Campus Health for testing and treatment options. As with previous weeks, we have supplies and the capability for 1,600 antigen tests per day. So that's 8,000 cases a week and capacity to process 1,700 PCR specimens per week. Dr. Ian Pepper's Wastewater Epidemiology program continues to provide insights that help us use resources strategically. So we're continue to use an expanded version of wastewater-based epidemiology, and that's proving to be very, very effective. We're also seeing improvements in the external factors we monitor, approaching the most favorable figures across key categories since tracking began in early June. The numbers of COVID-19 inpatients reported in local hospitals decreased to 38 as of Sunday, September 27th, close to the low point of 36. And Dr. Carmona will go through all those data in just a moment. And the numbers of COVID-19 inpatients reported in ICUs decreased to 12, close to a low point of 11. As I said a moment ago, we cannot become complacent. These improvements in case numbers and outcomes are coming from improved compliance. I can't emphasize that more. Improved compliance, washing your hands, covering your face, staying away from as many people as possible, certainly in these big off-campus gatherings. Recommendations for face coverings, physical distancing, and other measures will continue to be the hallmark of our success. I encourage all of you, students, faculty, staff, and other members of our Southern Arizona community, including visitors to our campus, to continue to follow the rules so that we can protect one another and move forward. We cannot control the virus on our own. Please do your part. Bear down and mask up. With that, Rich, I'll turn it over to you.
And again, to all our viewers, thank you for continuing to follow us and for your suggestions that we receive between meetings. We really appreciate all of the good vibes and suggestions that have come in. So let's go to the first slide. And as we've done every week, review some of the data that's before us that guides some of the decision making. As you can see here, there's a 14-day change in cases. Again, this is the state of Arizona by day, and it's concerning. We also see deaths are up about 19%, although the number is relatively small, it's still increased significantly. And if you look there at the end of September, you see that bump again. That's reflective of the cases that are going up. It's something that's very concerning. And I know that in speaking with the county and with the state officials are looking into this to work harder into being able to decrease the transmissibility so that these cases will continue to drop. Next slide, please. And we look at new cases are lower, but going up in Arizona. As you see the right side of that curve, there's a precipitous drop when we were doing very, very well. And then as you see, there's a little blip there that takes us up again. And now it's starting to go back down again. But still, as the president alluded to, it's still unacceptable. The number of cases that we're seeing, although lower than prior, are still concerning. And the real problem is people that have not been compliant. On campus, we've done pretty well. Off campus, you've heard the numbers that the president has given from our CART team, as well as others who are reporting. They're moving in the right direction, but we still need better compliance to be able to flatten that curve. Next slide. Pima County cases since March 1st, you can see how they peaked, then went down, then they peaked again. And as you look to the right of that graph, you'll see that right there, that they're dropped again. And for those of you who can access this, you can hover over those bars and actually see the specific breakdown of cases and give you more granular information. But in general, what this shows is that the numbers are still down, but not down enough. We have to, bear down, mask up continually. We can't be complacent. And the president and I have reinforced this every single week here. And even though these numbers are concerning, they are still staying relatively low, but we cannot be complacent. Next slide. If you look at our RT there, the measure of transmissibility, and again, this is for the state, and you can see that we're in a good place, below 1, which is a generally good number. However, we know there's hotspots. The one that we provided for you last week within the geographic area of zip code that the university belongs in, where we had a bump up and it was higher than that. And again, we're working with the county on this and the city to be able to decrease transmissibility in those hotspots like that zip code of 19 that we reported previously. But overall for the state, this transmissibility is good. As long as we can keep it below 1, we're on the good side, but we still can't be complacent. We want to force it down even more because there's still transmissibility occurring. Next slide. The CAR teams that you've heard the president talk about, what the good news here is we're seeing less interaction of a negative way. That is, we're seeing less groupings, less parties, and so on. But the fact that some are happening at all still is a problem. And we have to make sure that we are absolutely compliant with all of these best health practices. Otherwise, we will continue to see an increase in cases. So the trend is good, less than last week, but we're still seeing some groups outside. And as the president has pointed out, as we go off campus and you see students in various geographic areas outside, you still see far too many students without masks and are engaging in activities that are placing them at high risk and those they interact with at high risk. So we must continue to emphasize we can do this. We can keep the university open only if we get 100% compliance from all those who are on the university and interact with the community from the university. Next one, please. So COVID testing results, as the president has pointed out in his remarks, we're doing pretty well, but in the total testing window with 6.3% positive, that's still higher than we want. We want that to get down significantly below 5%, which is, that number is an indication that we're testing enough. We know we need to test more. We're doing the best we can. We're having some challenges, of course, because we're seeing what other universities are experiencing as students start to see that if they test positive, they may be quarantined. They're less likely to want to be tested. So it may be that we have to start considering mandatory testing for students who come on campus and make it a condition of being a student if this continues. Because we're doing everything we can to inspire, to cajole, to plead with, to beg students to get tested, and then to take the right actions based on those test results. I think that may be the last slide. Yeah, we have one more. Okay, so number of tests by day. Again, if you hover over the bars there, you'll be able to get some more granular information on all of those. The testing went up, you see, in September, and then toward the end of September, it's dropped a little bit now. And this is concerning to us as well. But again, as I said earlier, we are trying to encourage every student to get tested as much as possible. When there's any question, if they're symptomatic, they go to campus health and those get screened over there. But we still want to get our testing up significantly more to be able to have a better handle on the true incidence and prevalence within the community. Next slide. I think that may be it. We have one more. Okay. The dashboard, as you can see, the 7-day average of positive test results pops up, and then you can see it's a precipitous drop toward the end of September. That's good. However, we saw a little bit of a bump, as I showed you on the previous slide. And if we look at the positive day-to-day, you can see toward the right side of that slide, it still bumps up, then down, dump, and then flat. And next week, I think we're going to see a little bit of a bump there as well. So again, I don't want to say I'm happy with that, nor is the president. It's heading in the right direction if it stays down, but we still have a lot more work to do to really flatten that curve and keep it flat for a couple of weeks, which really tells us that transmissibility is down significantly. Next slide. Okay, that was it. So, Bobby, I think that, being cautiously optimistic again, both of us lose a lot of sleep over this every night, looking at the sit reps, the 24-hour data, and being able to, hope that in the next week or two, maybe we can move in another direction. but we still don't have all the data we need to do that. But I'm encouraged, as you said, on campus that what we're seeing is favorable, but we still have to work hard toward making that curve stay flat for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would agree, Rich. The one thing is I go around late at night and just kind of cruise around and I continue to see not as large a groups as I was seeing maybe 2 weeks ago, but clearly there are people, certainly Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, who are out. And I just don't see a lot of face covering out across campus or on the streets. And we've got individuals who are monitoring this and who are offering individuals who don't have face coverings, additional face coverings in case they left them. And usually when confronted, people just pull their face covering out of their pocket or their backpack or whatever and put it on. And then, you know, it just doesn't work like that. I think that, I think it would be best if we all just wore face coverings all the time, because then we know that that is one of the most effective public health measures we can do. Yes. So my hope is, I'm glad to hear that they're not, I didn't hear of any large 300 individual parties this week in our community, and that's a good sign. But we continue to need to be vigilant, as you said, Rich. I think that the number of tests, I'm a little concerned that the number of tests that came down. And you and I have talked about testing fatigue, and people just are tired of being tested. But I think we need to do more testing. We have the capability of doing almost 10,000 tests a week. I would love to see us do that. We continue to test our dorm students, and I know in collaboration in conjunction with the county and the city, we continue to offer testing for off-campus locations as well. But we're probably testing as much as any university campus in the country. I saw something recently this week about the massive push that University of Illinois made to test all 40,000 of their students twice a week. So that's 80,000 tests a week. We're eightfold less in our capability, but I'm really hopeful and optimistic that we will get to that 10-second, 10-cent test. It may not be 10-second, 10-cent test, but it may be a 1-minute, $1 test. And my hope would be that the technology evolves quickly in the coming months, and that by the spring term, by January, when we all come back, that we would have the capability of testing at least all of the students who come to classes in person. I think that'll be a big, important transition point for us on campus. You know, President Crow announced at the press conference with the governor last week that they have a rapid microfluidics test that will be ready in 6 months. 6 months is too long for me. We have our own test that one of our bioengineering professors is developing, and I'm hoping to be able to share some positive results from that. And I'm hoping that we'll have that capability by January to test everyone every day, everyone every day, so that we can show we're negative today. The one other plug I wanted to put in is for the Wildcat Wellness. I think many of us do it. I do it at 8 o'clock every morning, and I get a little green check mark. And so I think we need more people to sign into that, into the contact tracing app. But I think on balance, things are going well. I think we're now 5 weeks or so into the term. We've got 8 weeks to go, so a lot of the term left to go. We need to finish this semester out strong by limiting the transmission of this potentially deadly virus. The good news is we've got capacity in the healthcare system. I do take it as a positive sign that campus health is seeing less symptomatic individuals, because the goal, of course, is to find those asymptomatic people and get them that are unsuspecting. People who are symptomatic will seek out help and will essentially self-quarantine because they know they're sick and they just don't feel well. So I take it as a good sign. The number of people seeking medical help at campus health has decreased significantly. And I said I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm starting to get more enthusiastic about reading about using canine investigators. I read a nice article over the weekend, and I sent it out to a lot of people about the ability to use canines to sniff out samples, and within 10 seconds and 10 cents, I think we can have potentially a way to find samples that could be positive. So we'll continue to do all the things we're doing, continue to test as much as we possibly can. And maybe with that, Rich, if you got any comments you want to add to all the things that I said I wasn't going to say and just said, then I'll give you a chance and we'll go to questions.
I will, Bobby. Thanks. And well, I appreciate your enthusiasm and passion for science as always. What the public doesn't see are the hundreds of emails that go back and forth and text between you and I and the leaders every day with trying to get the best innovation on a whole host of issues. And to your point, as soon as we exchanged our texts over the weekend, our dean at the College of Veterinary Medicine was on it. And this morning they're meeting with the faculty to look into this because we know there's good science. And the reports are it's 100% sensitive. The dogs are better than anything we can do technically. So we're all very excited about that. We know they do it with bombs. They do it with cancers. That's been shown. So this is another area that animals may help us significantly. The other context I would just say before we go to questions is we have to remember where we started. I mean, we've been in this now since January, February, we ramped up. So it's been 6-7 months that we actually have the ICS stood up, working closely with you. And remember in the summer, we had 7,000 students here and faculty, and we did real well over the summer. And when the other students came in, we knew that we were going to see a bump in cases. We said it repeatedly. We did. And we managed them well because the campus was ready because of the plans that you put in place to make sure that the campus was ready should that happen. And today we see that reflected in the numbers. We're still not happy. We're still, still losing sleep over some of these things, but it's a relatively safe environment if the students will continue to comply. And what we see is also that, we set up contingencies up to 600 beds if we needed them. We're only about 250 or so now, and we're doing very well as far as managing the cases we have, which we know we can make less if the students continue to comply. So there's a good story embedded in the daily iterations of all of this stuff. And I think that I'm very proud of what all of the faculty staff have done to make the campus ready to deal with all of these contingencies, as well as the partnerships with the community where we're tracking the beds and the ventilators and the staffing, just in case something happens, we're ready to deal with those contingencies as well.
Yeah, and I think we have over 5,000. I think it's around 5,200 students who are actually going to face-to-face classes and have been over the last 5 weeks. And because they're in a control system where they have face coverings and many of them are in labs and have protective gear on, we're just not seeing the transmission from students to students in the classroom or students to faculty and staff. And this has been borne out from the data across all universities. That's not where cases are being transmitted. They're being transmitted in these off-campus large gatherings, and I'm really proud to see that those have gone down. I do hear from student leaders and the hundreds of students I interact with during the week that we signed up for in-person classes and we'd like to be able to do that. And I think there are many faculty members who are also saying, look, we see that their mitigation efforts, can we slowly move back into, I think they're into more face-to-face interactions. And I think it'll be good for the mental health of the students to be able to do that and not feel so isolated. But for this week, we're going to continue to be in the so-called stage 1, just essential courses. But I think that as we come out of this this voluntary quarantine period, which I think has gotten people's attention and behavior has changed, we could explore maybe, I think there are about 2,700 other students who signed up for in-person classes. And so that would be moving to stage 2. We're not quite ready to do that yet, but as you're going to be meeting with the public health advisory team today. And again, there's no data from any university that in a controlled classroom where face coverings, physical distance is employed, a lot of hand washing and splash guards and things to protect faculty and staff, that there's any increased transmissibility. So with that, Holly, I think we should go to questions.
You got it. I'm glad you actually raised that, because one of the things that we saw last week with some local reporting was that the university is getting ready to just shut down completely and go to all online and send our students home. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of address that so that we could move beyond it.
Yeah, so we don't have any plans to do that. I know that people were concerned once we saw that spike, but if we understand what the spike was related to, it was these large gatherings off campus. And we know that we clearly know through great contact tracing that our public health experts are doing in conjunction with the county and the state, that's where those cases are being transmitted, not in the classroom, not in the labs. It's really important to continue to emphasize that Dr. Cantwell and all the research team have kept our research operation going forward, which is so important. And it gives our students and postdoctoral fellows and faculty members the opportunity to do their work and be productive, much of which is COVID-related research. And we're incredibly proud of particularly the testing team. There are going to be some major papers that are going to be published in the next couple of weeks out of the grassroots efforts that all of our scientists here at the University of Arizona have done, particularly around antibody testing. And we'll come back and maybe have our scientists come back and update us on the data that they found in terms of what the true incidence is and how long do you remain protected once you get infected. So again, if you like what's on the program today, come back next week.
Great. So our first question comes from KGun9. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, have your efforts to discourage or enforce to discourage these large gatherings been able to reach into these large high-rise student apartments, and just what's the general level of cooperation you've had in those facilities?
Yeah, I think that there's been great cooperation between the city, the county, the university, particularly Chris Kopak and his team going in and providing all the better practices that we have around cleaning and having the high rises have isolation rooms for those that tested positive. Of course, we've been able to offer isolation dorm rooms to off-campus students as well. Not as many have taken advantage of that, and I understand that. But also Dr. Cullen pointed out, and I think, Rich, I'm correct in this, that the swimming pools and the gyms inside the high rises have been closed.
Right. Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
All right, our next question comes from Megan McNeil from KOLD.
Hi guys, thanks for coming again this week. So my question is just about the Pac-12. a lot of these cases are coming, like y'all said, from off-campus gatherings. Are y'all concerned, even though fans aren't allowed in the stadiums and whatnot, that people will still be kind of gathering at bars and restaurants and at people's houses to watch the games? Are y'all concerned about that? And what would kind of be the contingency plans for that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say, watch in your own place, either on your TV or most of our students don't have TVs, of course. They stream it live on their computers. I think there's a lot of excitement about that we're going to play sports, but I would discourage large gatherings. And if you're going to be out at restaurants, I would implore the restaurant owners and our patrons to really focus on staying physically distanced, cover your face, get a beautiful University of Arizona Wildcat mask. And if you need to go to a watch party, cover your face, stay distanced. You can give virtual fist bumps and high fives, and you don't need to be in each other's face screaming and spewing this virus around. So cover your face, stay away from people. I actually really like the idea of, having people come together and cheer on the Wildcats, but we got to do it safely.
Great. Our next question comes from KVOA.
Hi there. Thank you so much again for this week. My question is kind of piggybacking off that. I know as football is coming back. So what are the plans for all U of A sports, as well as maybe intramurals and maybe clubs or organizations?
Yeah, that's a good point about intramurals and club sports. What we've said is, and I think I've got this right, I know I'll have it right for football and basketball, that football would start, I think the official start date is November 6th, which is a Friday. But for all intents and purposes, it'll be that weekend of the 6th, 7th of November. There'll be 6 games culminating in a championship game, the Pac-12 North versus the Pac-12 South championship. So I think what that means for us is that we would play Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, USC, UCLA. So that gets the 5 other members of the South. And then we would play one, quote, crossover game. And I'm not sure, the schedule's not come out yet, but we would play one team in the North. So we'll wait to see what the schedule looks like. And then the top team from the South and the North would play in a championship game. I think it's December 18th or 19th in Las Vegas. And then that winner of the Pac-12 championship, I'm assuming would have consideration for the college football playoffs. Basketball would start November 25th, and that's great. We get to get some games in before the January start to the Pac-12 conference schedule. But importantly, there'll be no fans allowed. I was a proponent of having limited fans, but we all as a Pac-12 voted unanimously together to not allow fans into the stadium because the California schools just can't do it. And that's a third of the schools that we have in the Pac-12. So I think for public health reasons and for solidarity in the Pac-12 conference, it was the right choice.
Great.
Just one other thing. And so I believe volleyball and soccer, the championships have been moved by the NCAA sort of central office into the spring. So those sports would roll over into the spring.
Our next question is asked by Stephanie Casanova from the Arizona Daily Star. And I think you already addressed this. She says, you've said essential in-person classes will continue through October 5th. Is the administration considering moving entirely to online classes after October 5th, or are the plans to go entirely online only if cases continue to increase?
Yeah, I think we've been really consistent about following the numbers. Even with the big spike that we had, we continued the essential courses, and I think it was a good choice because, again, I keep pointing to the fact that that's not where the cases are being transmitted. And that's why I am thinking about the potential for moving to expand just a little bit to the quote phase 2, where there would be small numbers of increased face-to-face students, but it would only mean another 2,500 or so students. But for right now, we'll continue to follow the data. We like that the trends are in case numbers are going down. We're seeing less individuals in the hospital. We're seeing less symptomatic individuals show up at campus health. And again, inside the classroom, inside our research labs, it's a very protected environment. I would love to be able to test every person every day, and that's kind of what we're moving towards. So no, we're not going to all online only and sending students back home. We've got 8 more weeks to grind through this. And barring a massive outbreak that would overwhelm our ability to isolate, and that we would start seeing people get really sick and start to get into the hospital, we'll continue to go forward and do what we do every week, every day. Rich and I look at this data along with our public health team and the county and the city and the state. So we'll continue to watch the data. The data shows, though, that there's no transmissibility in the classroom. I think that's pretty clear.
President Robbins, KVOA Austin Walker has a follow-up. Austin, you can unmute your mic.
Thank you. It's actually not related to the sports, but it is related to, I know you said you had 3 red tags, 10 citations, and 13 coded referrals. Could you please explain what each of those kind of means and how they are given out, and then the consequences for each of them, and then possibly, if that information is available, the total number of suspensions or expulsions because of COVID-19, violations?
Yeah, I may need a lifeline here from Holly, but so red tag means that is delivered to the occupant of a home or an apartment or wherever the place is red tagged. And that means that they get a monetary fine, I believe, and then the potential for further down eviction. I may be a little off on the eviction thing, or that they close the house down. But then the citations are for specific violations, which usually is around noise. It's around public drinking. It's around underage drinking. And it has to be a specific citation. I'm pretty confident in that law enforcement is not going into a private residence and citing for no face covering. But if they find a reason why there are large gatherings, which I do believe violates a city ordinance, if you get more than X number, and I think the number is 10, then that's where the red tags emanate from. I do know there have been a couple of expulsions, but I don't know the exact number. And I know that all of these people who are cited enter into the portal for code of conduct violations that are being adjudicated by the dean of students. And you can clean anything I said up, Holly, if I got things wrong.
Yeah. Austin, I've just gone to our dean of students to get that full list. So if you contact me directly after this, I'll make sure you get the full report.
Awesome, thank you.
I do think, Austin, that there were some cases, particularly some video of some of these parties that I think the word got around pretty quickly on social media and word of mouth that we were taking this seriously, that people were going to go into the portal for student code of conduct, and that they could be, could be suspended, interim suspended. I think a lot of students got interim suspension, and then potentially being expelled from the university. So I think that, and also people realizing, look, a very small group of non-compliant individuals was threatening all of the people who are following the rules. I mean, we were getting calls from people saying, hey, we're here, we're following the rules, but there are these people who are making a lot of noise. They are definitely drinking. There's definitely underage drinking. And, a lot of the way that we find out about this is from the 80+% of people who want to follow the rules. They're here to learn. They're here to acquire knowledge. They're here to advance their academic career so that they can graduate and either go to graduate school or get a job. And that's what most people are doing. So most people are following the rules, and I'm very happy for that and appreciative of the support. We need to continue to focus in on, if you see somebody walking around in large group without their face covered, say something about it. Usually, at least I'm not always met with cheerful response. They drag their, put it on, and I'm sure they look around, and when I'm out of sight, they take it back off and start having fun again. You can still have fun with your face covered. Please cover your face. Cover your face, wash your hands. Come on.
Thank you, President Robbins. Our next question comes from Christian Barnack from the Arizona Wildcat. Go ahead, Christian.
Thank you, Holly. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all had a great week. I have a couple questions, if that's all right. The first is just to clarify, is testing being mandated for all on-campus residing students?
Christian, it was mandated to get into the dorm, and when there are data that show that there are hot spots, for instance, the wastewater-based epidemiology, or through contact tracing, then the dorm students, because they have a contract with us and we can require them to submit to testing, then that is being done. The real problem, of course, is most of our students are in off-campus housing, and we can't mandate it there. What I would love to see is that anybody who comes on campus eventually, we're not ready for this today, but if you look at the University of Illinois and they're doing 80,000 tests a week, we just don't quite have the capability to do that yet. We have the capability to do about 8,000 or 9,000 tests a week. And so I would love to see those students that are coming on campus be able to or be required to do testing. But think about that. I mean, that if we did, if we were to say we were going back to normal, that would be 60,000 tests every day. So Illinois is doing 80,000 a week, 60,000 tests a day. That's a big, big hurdle to overcome. But I do believe the technology is going to get us there in the coming months.
And so the testing being done at the Union and the North Rec, that's strictly voluntary?
Holly's shaking her head. I know North Rec is, the North Rec Center is for voluntary walk-in. In the union, I think that's one place where some of the required dorm testing is being done. Holly, help me out.
Yep, you're exactly right. So
Yeah.
every week we've now instituted a testing schedule for our dorm students, and that is all taking place at the student union. And then the North Rec is for any employees or asymptomatic students to come in and get tested. And you no longer have to sign up. You can do that on a walk-in basis over at North Rec now. So that's where most of our off-campus students and our employees are going.
And if you're
Okay.
symptomatic, you go to campus health. That's kind of how it breaks out.
Okay, so it is being mandated for students residing on campus on like a scheduled basis then?
Correct.
Okay. And then a follow-up to that would be, do you know how many of the voluntary testing for asymptomatic students, do you know how many of those are students residing on campus and how many of those are students residing off campus, of those who go for voluntary testing?
Yeah, I think that most of the, well, because we have a larger number of students off campus, there and all of those at the North Rec Center, for instance, are all off campus. And so I think though, it's still, if you look at the test, and we got to look at the data because I see so much of this, but I think I've pretty much got it right, that it's about half and half. About half the tests are for off-campus students and about half are on campus. So we have a smaller portion, so we're doing more intensive testing for the students on campus. We would love to see off-campus students come to North Rec and volunteer to be tested. I know I talk to a lot of students who they just like to get tested every week and they take advantage of it. It's also available to faculty and staff if they feel the need to be tested. You know, they should go. For instance, I've been pretty public about I was exposed and I was contacted about being exposed. So I definitely wanted to be tested. I quarantined, but then I went to get my test as well. I was totally asymptomatic. All the tests turned out negative, but those are the kind of things that I would love to see because we've got the capability. We've got the capability to do almost 10,000 tests a week. And I'm a big advocate, more testing, more testing, more testing.
It's also worth noting, President Robbins, that we've now started mandatory random testing in our dorms. And within the next couple of weeks, we will try to implement that on our off-campus housing students as well. So we've now instituted another, outside of our mandatory, we're going to do random sampling as well.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks, Christian. Our next question comes back from Megan McNeil from KOLD.
Yeah, so speaking of the stage 2 moving to possibly some more in-person classes, what are the data sets or requirements that y'all are looking into in order to move to that stage 2 and get out of the stage 1?
Yeah, I think, Megan, it's just looking at the numbers. I mean, we're not ready to do it right now, although I can make the case for doing it now because, again, the transmissibility in the controlled classroom where you're forced to be physically distanced, where you're forced to have your face covered, where you gel in and you gel out, where there are splash guards between the professors and the students. I'd feel pretty comfortable right now, but I want to have an abundance of caution and wait and let's see what happens because the voluntary 14-day quarantine expires after tomorrow. So let's see what happens the rest of the week and next weekend. And we'll be ready to report back data to you next Monday.
The next question comes from Chris Conover from AZPM. Go ahead, Chris.
Good morning, everyone. Just a quick question. I guess it's Thursday, October 1st, downtown will be reopening. Are you worried about conflicting messages here? Downtown saying, come on back down, it's safe, and you all saying, wash your hands, mask up, social distance. Are you worried about the conflicting message here?
I'm always worried, as Rich and I talk about. My only concern is that everybody else is not concerned enough. And I can tell you, Rich and I are grinding over this every day. What I would say, and I'm going to throw it over to Rich to get his response, because he works very closely and has for years with law enforcement, with the county health department, with the city. I think that by having downtown open, I am concerned that in particular our students will go down there. But what I would ask everyone to do, if you open and you follow the rules, that the owners of the restaurants maintain adequate physical distancing, maintain gelling in, gelling out, maintain face covering. I don't know if we'll ever get to where you wear a face shield and you eat under it. People take their face coverings off and eat. That doesn't seem to be as big of a problem as getting people in close corners, watching a game, drinking. You lose your inhibition. You forget to follow the rules, and you're screaming and you're spewing, COVID spittle into other people's environment. They breathe it in and they get infected. That's how it works. Rich, what comments do you have about downtown?
First, I'd agree with you. And I think that, as you know, working with the city and the county, we're very sensitive about the health issues, but we're also sensitive about the economy. People need their jobs. They need their health care. And so we're trying to find the right balance to let the economy start to grow and flourish again, but yet do it in a very safe way, as you said. So everything you said is spot on. We are concerned anytime we're giving authority or permission for groups to start coming in. But if they follow the public health guidelines, everything you said about bearing down, masking up, washing hands, gel in, gel out, keep the space, and then a team that's in those facilities that's doing the sanitation. Every time somebody moves from a table, they clean it again. They're washing hands, making sure the silverware, every method that somebody can transmit has to be addressed. I think if we do that, we do it carefully, kind of like we've done at the university. Bring a few in, let's see how it works. Okay, let's open a couple of restaurants. Let's go open a museum. Let's see if we can start socializing, but doing it safely and doing it with all of the practical public health guidance that we've given. And if we will track the data, and if it shows that we're failing, then we've got to back up again, just as we've done in the university. We move forward if it's safe, we stop if it's not safe. So I think I'm cautiously optimistic, but recognize that Bobby, talking to our students, some of whom are employed in places downtown, talking to citizens who are struggling. They need their health care. They need to pay their rent. They have mortgages. And we have to be equally sensitive to those needs as well as that of the health needs of the community.
If everybody would just simply wear a face covering, I mean, we could go so far in mitigating the spread of this potentially deadly virus to so many vulnerable individuals. You were saying something I was going to comment on in terms of opening the economy. I think all those things are correct, Rich. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I talk about this all the time. We are so blessed to live in a southern Arizona, where I think it's the best weather in the world because we can dine outside. I would really, really emphasize, try to stay outside. If you get the option, would you like to be seated inside immediately, or would you wait 15 minutes for an outside table? I would love to see it all outdoor dining, because we know that outdoors, the virus is less effective at being transmitted.
Yeah, Bobby, one other thing I want to add, especially as we're starting to open up some of these things very cautiously, get your flu shot.
Yes.
Everybody needs to get a flu shot.
Yes.
Okay, and we have the doubters and all the conspiracy theories, but I'm telling you, vaccinations are possibly the greatest scientific advancement in the history of mankind. We don't see polio anymore. We don't see tetanus. We don't see whooping cough unless we don't vaccinate. And then you see what happened in California a couple of years ago with measles and whooping cough. Get your flu shot because we can't afford to have an uptick with flu on top of coronavirus, stressing the resources that we have.
I agree.
We have one follow-up from Stephanie Casanova from the Arizona Daily Star. Go ahead, Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie, are you there?
There it is. Hi. So it's actually a follow-up question to something Dr. Carmona said earlier about students being reluctant to get testing because then they don't want to quarantine and have to deal with that on top of, making sure their grades are fine and all the other stresses of being a student. Do you have a response or a message or any kind of assurance for those students
Yes.
who are trying to juggle their grades and managing COVID?
I think that the response is, first, let me preface the remarks by saying this is not only University of Arizona. As I talk to our colleagues around the country, the same issues are coming up. Students are starting to realize, gee, maybe I just don't get tested, then I'll just go to class, nobody will know. But as the president said, up to 40% of these students could be carrying a virus and be spreading it continually. So that's why they have to get tested. The other thing is, if they get tested and they're positive, sure, they go to a quarantine, but they can still engage in their classes. They can still stay interconnected on media platforms. And that's only for a 2-week period when we make sure that they get through that incubation period so they can't spread the disease anymore. So we're asking them to get tested. And we're asking them, if you are positive, follow the rules and regulations. You're still a student. You're still plugged into our system. But it's not only about you. It's about preventing you from inadvertently spreading the disease and creating havoc in our community. And really, if enough people don't comply, they run the risk, as the president said, of having to have a forced quarantine or shut down certain opportunities that we have now because we've done fairly well in some of these.
That's all the questions we have today. I will turn it over to you, President Robbins, for any last words.
Nope, just as always, bear down and mask up. We'll see you next week.